Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you had a good weekend. Browns training camp less than a month away. As it is in July, they'll be in the Greenbrier in 3 weeks or so. Along those lines, Eagles cornerback Darius Slay asked who he thought the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL was.
He really the one that's really be slept on. He been a consistent receiver since he been in the league and been dominating, routing folks. He really the only receiver that really I truly think that has a true route tree, as it can run all the routes. You know what I'm saying? A lot of guys got special ability to be running faster, or somebody that's 6'6", 6'5", can just moss you because he's bigger than you. But Amari Cooper, off the line of scrimmage, he's amazing. After the catch, he's amazing. He can attack the ball. So I really be thinking he's the most unappreciated receiver in the league. But
I would agree. That's a great answer. And I don't know if you saw that game of catch him and Flacco had when they played the Texans, I think it was.
Yes.
Bro, they were just playing catch out there.
Oh, I'm talking about and getting groovy.
It was amazing. I mean, anybody that doubts what he just said, go watch Amari Cooper and watch how Amari Cooper makes every quarterback better. He's played with a bunch of different guys. So that's
he does. And people and I'm seeing right now that Cleveland don't want to pay him. They need to pay that man that money.
Pay that man.
Let's welcome in Scott Petrak. He is the Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram. You can check out his stuff, brownzone.com. Scott, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I certainly understand Amari Cooper's position in it.
Yeah, and I think Slay's right. I think Amari Cooper is underappreciated. He's probably underpaid given how the receiver market has really skyrocketed. Now, the Browns thought they were getting a great deal when they traded for Cooper from the Cowboys. They inherited that 5-year, $100 million deal. And they love that they were only, quote marks, paying him $20 million. Well, all of a sudden, Cooper sees he's in the last year of his contract. He just turned 30, wants some more money. And I understand that, but it's a difficult situation given the contract, given his age, on what the Browns are going to do.
Yeah, so along those lines, this one is from The Athletic. NFL contracts to watch for with each and every NFL team. Browns, obviously, they say Amari Cooper. They're speculating here. He's likely looking for something like the $35 million in guaranteed Mike Evans has last spring ahead of his age 31 season, or maybe the $50 million Tennessee gave to Calvin Ridley, who's 6 months younger than Cooper. The Browns have the money to give Cooper a raise now, but future years could be complicated. And when they say that $50 million, that would be over a couple of seasons. He has no guaranteed money, and so I get it. I get why he wouldn't come to camp and risk getting hurt. They got to figure something out, and I think they will. This front office has been pretty good about finding ways to structure contracts for guys that they want.
Yeah, it has. And that's why if I were betting on it, I'd bet that they figure something out. But it's not easy. And again, I'll bring up the age. And, if they wanted, if Amari Cooper were 27, they would have this deal done by now. The Browns would want him as their number one receiver, and they pay him big money for the extension. But the fact that he's 30, I think it really complicates things. You look at the last 2 seasons. Now, they were really good seasons. I think it was a career high in receiving yardage last year, but he was banged up at the end of both those years. And you just wonder if you're the Browns, do you continue to pay this guy near the top of the market when he's going to be 31, 32, 33 if you extend him? It's a tough decision for the organization. I really think it is. They could play hardball and say, hey, come to camp and play 1 year, and then we'll figure it out after. You become a free agent at 31. And then I doubt Cooper gets a huge deal. So I think both sides are going to have to compromise in order for this thing to get done.
The one thing that concerns me, I look at the guys behind Cooper, and it's none of them excite me. I mean, there's potential. Don't get me wrong. I see the potential in Moore. I see the potential in Judy. The production concerns me.
Well, there's not a number one receiver, right, behind Cooper. And Judy, Denver drafted Judy to be that number one guy, but he hasn't He hasn't played like a number one, and the Browns' contract extension to Judy doesn't pay him like a number one, right? I think it's 17 million, something like that. That's a number two receiver in today's market. So that's where, in my opinion, Cooper's leverage is the production he's had, the fact that there's no true number one behind him, and I don't think the Browns have a way of finding a replacement number one receiver. And this is a huge year for the Browns, right? You're counting on building on the playoff trip of a year ago. You expect Deshaun Watson to be healthy and better, and you're trying to support him as best as possible. And that includes Amari Cooper. There's no getting around that.
Yeah, without question. This one from USA Today, 2024 Browns record prediction. Boasting one of the most complete teams in football, the Browns look to recapture some of the magic Joe Flacco left behind towards the end of the 2024 season with Deshaun Watson back at the helm, operating what stands to be one of the better offensive units in the league. This Browns team should be set up for success on both sides of the ball. USA Today says 11-6. I really can't argue with that. The schedule, 11-6 with the schedule they have, pretty good year.
Yeah, I've not made a schedule, a season prediction yet. 11-6 is certainly an option. My initial reaction is that feels a little high, but the only reason it feels high is the schedule, like you mentioned, and the AFC North, right? It's going to be tough to win a bunch of games in this division. So if they got to 11-6, I think they'd be thrilled. I think fans should be thrilled, and I think they would win the division.
All right, so I know you wrote an article about Michael Woods kind of trying to rebound and get things going after a tough season in 2023. Take us through that article.
Yeah, I mean, he missed all last year with an Achilles, right? And it happened in the offseason, so I'm trying to remember. No, he told me it's April 3rd. So he wasn't part of OTAs, the offseason program, minicamp, any of it. So that's and it's bad enough when you miss a year. I think it's even more difficult when that missed year is your second one in the league. And he didn't have a lot of production as a rookie. He's a 6th-round pick, so there's nothing guaranteed about his future. There's nothing, he hasn't established himself in this league. So I think it was a really difficult injury. On top of that, he had the 6-game suspension from the league for it was contact, a personal conduct thing. He wouldn't get into the details. So there was a lot going on last year. He says he's 100%. The coaches say he looks good. Now, when you look at him, he looks stronger to me, really muscular upper body. He's a big guy. He runs well. Like, it's not hard to see him finding a spot in this receiving core, but there's a lot of guys ahead of him, right? There's a lot of competition for that last 1 or 2 spots. So he's in a tough spot, but I think he's certainly a guy that intrigues me just given his physical ability.
Yeah, and it's important to note, kind of tore that ACL going down and working out with Deshaun Watson in the offseason as well.
Yeah, it was an Achilles. If I said ACL, it was an Achilles. He tore the Achilles. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But working out with Deshaun Watson, you're exactly right. He said Watson threw him a pass. He felt like it hit him in the Achilles or the ankle, but it wasn't the ball. It was his Achilles just, ruptured.
All right, so this from Sports Illustrated. 4 burning questions as the Browns get ready for training camp in July. Number 1, is there a chance Nick Chubb is actually back sooner than expected? Number 2, Jerry Jeudy arrived in Cleveland with a lot of expectations this year. What type of expectation should Elijah Moore have? Number 3, which AFC North team is likely to improve upon 2023? Which is most likely to regress? And number 4, with the Browns going back to Greenbrier for 2nd consecutive year, could this become a regular thing if they continue to have success? Scott, we saw Nick Chubb kind of jumping around, bouncing around, doing all kinds of things on his reconstructed knee. Those are really good, including lateral cuts. That gives you an indication he's maybe ahead of where we might have thought he is.
Yeah, I think that's the next step, and it was a good step to see. When we talked to Chubb, last month, he talked about how all he's doing is running. He didn't elaborate on the recovery. He didn't give any timetables. But this is different than running straight lines, right? It was lateral. It was on one leg. It's balanced stuff. Now, it's tough to judge. I don't know exactly how he looked doing those drills completely healthy. My guess is he looked better. But I think it is a reason for
Yeah.
But
Yep.
I'm really cautious about getting carried away with Nick Chubb. But if your baseline, like mine, this makes me think, okay, maybe it's earlier than that.
Yeah, without question. Elijah Moore, I don't think he had the type of year that, and he might have been hurt more by the 4 quarterbacks that played last year than anybody. So we'll see the expectations for him. As far as the North, team that you think might improve, team you think might regress?
Yeah, I think improve, you got to go with Cincinnati, just given Joe Burrow, right? Didn't play much last year, didn't finish the season. One, 2, 3 quarterbacks in the league, or not one, but 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks in the league. So I know they had a good record last year, but they could take a jump. I think you got to throw Pittsburgh in that conversation just because I think they'll be better at quarterback. And then regress, I think you got to point to Baltimore just because they were so good last year. And I think it's going to be hard to do it with their schedule. Just win the number of games, right? Maybe they go farther in the playoffs, but winning the number of regular season games, I think it's going to be hard for them to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's going to be real tough for any team in this AFC North to win 10. Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we will head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. I'm just thinking about Amari Cooper, and if you are planning to have Amari Cooper on contract with no guaranteed money, I can see Watson be like in the same situation like in Texas, and they let go D-Hop, that receiver, because this is right now, it just seems that you got to hit the ground running. We have a new offense, and maybe another receiver. I don't know. Hopefully the Browns, because you're supposed to have a short and long-term goal. You're supposed to know who you're paying and what you're paying.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails, and that's a pretty valid point, Scott. New offense. Amari Cooper and David Njoku are Deshaun Watson's security blankets in this offense.
Yeah, there's best 2 options. We don't know how Judy's going to develop, if he and Watson have an instant connection. So, yeah, that's why I think it is important. I mean, there's no question that it's important that they figure something out with Cooper, right? It's just a matter of what can they figure out. Does the team go all in with him just because they figure they can't live without him? That's probably not the smartest decision. You don't want to be paying a guy, $35 million when he's 33. So that's what they have to come to a middle ground. But, yeah, just going back to the original clip you guys played, he's really underrated, Amari Cooper. He's really valuable. And while he's not, in my opinion, he's not Justin Jefferson or, Jamari Chase, he's a legit number 1 in this league.
Yeah. Again, they And I think they will. I have confidence that they will. More so than any other team in town, I think they find a way to make this work. All right. 2024 NFL offensive line rankings from PFF. They go Lions 1, Eagles 2, Colts 3, Browns 4th ranked offensive line ahead of the Jets. Unit could still be among the best in the NFL when healthy, and it's also evident that the Browns have good depth in second-year offensive tackle DeJuan Jones, who might even earn the starting job at right tackle. I think it's a little high. I'm a little more concerned than most with the Browns' offensive line.
Interesting, Dave. I get where you're coming from. I'm okay with it because start at right tackle. I see a 2-for-1. Whether it's Jack Conklin and DeJuan Jones, one of those guys. We haven't heard from Jack Conklin, but he was, he's quiet on Instagram. But this weekend he posted about his wife helping him get through, and it made it sound like he was ready to go. Now I don't know if that'll be day one of training camp, but it was an optimistic string of posts. So I think right tackle's okay. Wyatt Teller's fine or good. Ethan Postic's good. I think Joe Bitonio is going to bounce back at left guard from the injury-plagued year he had last year. If he doesn't, then you're right. This ranking is too high. But I have a lot of confidence in Joe Bitonio. Now, obviously, injuries are out of his cover and get back to the player he was. So then the only question left is at left tackle. I think Jed Wills is better than people give him credit for. He's in a contract year. I think you'll get the best football from Jed Wills. And if those two things happen on that left side, then I think that ranking is deserved.
All that is fair. The concern I have is everybody's Bitonio's a little older, Postic's a little older, Teller's a little older, and offensive line is not a position that ages well in the NFL. That's my big concern with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's legitimate. And, they've tried to – I feel like Andrew Berry's tried to add depth in the offseason. Not any huge names. I mean, Zach Zinter, the third-round pick out of Michigan at guard is probably the biggest name that he added in the offseason. But there's veteran tackles with starting experience if you need them. They brought back Michael Dunn at guard. So I think, they signed Brian Allen at center, right? So they had some veteran options along with Zach Zinter and Luke Whippler, some of the younger guys, DeJuan Jones. So I think they have another year in them before I'd be really concerned. But, I get your point, and you never know when that's going to happen, right? When injuries are going to hit. I mean, they had him at tackle last year, and they had him at guard. There's no reason the injuries couldn't happen again.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you knew when they were going to happen, you'd avoid them without question. This one is a real head-scratcher to me. It's from the Bleacher Report. Ranking the NFL's worst quarterback situations ahead of training camp. They say the worst quarterback situation in the NFL's Giants. They've got Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Nathan Rourke. Raiders are second. Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Anthony Brown, Carter Bradley. Panthers third. Bryce Young, Andy Dalton. I didn't even know he was still in the league. Jack Plummer. Browns, they say, are fourth with Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They say the Broncos are better. Bo Nix, Jared Stidham, Zach Wilson. Patriots are better with Jacoby Brissett, Drake May, Bailey Zappi. The Colts they have ahead of them. Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco, Sam Erlinger. Titans with Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, Malik Willis. They have the Steelers ninth. Wilson, Fields, Allen, and John Reese Plumlee. And then they have the Vikings 11th. Darnold, McCarthy, Nick Mullins, and Jaron Hall. And again, the higher you up on that list, the worse they say the quarterback rankings are. There are several of these teams that I think would take any of the top three of the Browns as their starter.
Yeah, that is a head scratcher, a head shaker, roll your eyes. Obviously, there's no faith in Deshaun Watson, right? I mean, that's the bottom line with this ranking. There's a lot of faith in young quarterbacks, right? I mean, if you have the Patriots where they are, it's because you think Drake Mays is going to be good, right? If But you think Bo Nix is going to be good if you have the Broncos high, J.J. McCarthy, like even Richardson with the Colts. Like there's a lot of young, unproven guys that are getting the benefit of doubt, and Deshaun Watson isn't in this ranking. So I don't agree with it. I think Jameis Winston is. I mean, I haven't studied it extensively, but my guess is he's a top half of the league at worst backup. I think Tyler Huntley is probably a top 5, number 3 quarterback in this league. So, yeah, I disagree with that ranking. Now, if Deshaun Watson plays 5 games or 6 games, then all right, then the Browns probably deserve to be in that mix. The only one I disagree with you, I think, is Pittsburgh. I think Justin Fields is going to be good. I don't know if he's a start day one, but I think there's a chance that Pitts. If you told me you got Fields starting from day one and Wilson is the backup, I kind of like that room.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields. I've said that all along. I thought he was going to end up in Pittsburgh, and I think he's going to be a pain to deal with. Mm-hmm. I just, when you look at all those rookie quarterbacks, if you pay attention to the NFL, I think there were 6 of them in the first round. 1 or 2 of them are going to have really good years, and there's going to be a couple of them that won't be in the league probably in 3 or 4 years. It's just the way it works with first-round quarterbacks now.
Well, yeah, and I know this is a quarterback list, but you do have to take into consideration the surroundings. And Deshaun Watson has a lot of talent surrounding him. And I don't think you can say the same thing about New England or Denver. Maybe Indianapolis you can. But I think the Browns are in a great spot. And if Deshaun Watson does not improve and does not play like a top, 10-12 quarterback in this league, it's going to be on him, right? So I just think it's premature to put the Browns in that situation like that listed.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com. And I'm going to step aside, take a quick timeout, other side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, it's Tony Frost, lifelong Cleveland Browns fan. And I just want to say one thing regarding Nick Chubb. What we're going to see this season coming up is the same thing we saw in 2012 when Adrian Peterson came back from his knee injury. Nick Chubb is going to tear the league up this year. Believe me. Go Browns. Woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Scott, I think that's certainly one of the possible outcomes, but I don't think you want to necessarily bank on that if you're the Browns.
No, I mean, that'd be ideal. And I'm not going to put anything past Nick Chubb, right? He's been phenomenal since the day they drafted him. But we have to remember, this is a really serious knee injury. It took 2 surgeries to repair it. Torn ACL, torn MCL. There's other damage inside. There was other damage inside that knee. It's a second major injury to that left knee, right? A lot of trauma inside that joint. So, again, I'm not saying Nick Chubb can't do it. I'm not saying he can't have a monster year. But you're right. The Browns need to have plenty of contingency plans. And I think fans need to manage their expectations. Whether it's when Chubb returns or when Chubb gets back to being Nick Chubb, if that ever happens. Like, that's still, until we see him running around, and not only in practice, but still we see him in games doing what he did and, turning 3-yard gains into 8-yard gains and busting loose for 80-yard touchdown runs. Until we see that, I'm just not going to say that he's going to be the same player. I just think that's not responsible.
All right, so this is from the Bleacher Report. Browns top trade candidates ahead of training camp. Number 1, they say Jerome Ford. Teams across the NFL always looking for running back depth. You could argue Ford has the most trade value among the Browns' depth because of his 804-yard season. Number 2, Elijah Moore. Moore is the number 4 pass catcher on the roster right now behind Cooper and Njoku and Jerry Jeudy. Number 3, Tyler Huntley. Browns should have a healthy competition for the backup role, but if Huntley can't surpass Winston on the depth chart, a handful of teams should inquire about his services because Cleveland's number 3 is better than the backup of some squads. I don't think they're trading either Moore or Ford. Ford probably going to be the main running back, or at least 1A to Foreman. Elijah Moore, we've already said they don't have a lot of depth in their young receiving core under contract. Huntley, maybe?
Yeah, I think there's no way they trade Ford. Yeah, to me, he's a starter day one, and he's your workhorse until Nick Chubb proves otherwise. So it's not going to be Jerome Ford. I think on that list, Huntley makes the most sense to me. He's not. I don't think there's any way he surpasses James Winston as a number 2, but there's a legitimate conversation for number 3 with Huntley and DTR. And if the Browns see DTR making progress and being the guy that they hope he would turn into when they drafted him, then yeah, you might be able to trade Huntley for something. So he seems the most realistic. I guess I'd never rule out Moore. He's in the last year of his contract. We saw them trade Donovan Peoples-Jones at midseason last year at the deadline, and he was in the last year of his contract. But that's not going to happen unless Cedric Tillman emerges as your number 3, and then you feel comfortable with whoever else is your number 4, right? Michael Woods or Jamari Thrash, whatever that is. You need other guys to step up before you could consider trading Elijah Moore.
All right, this one from Pro Football Network. Most underappreciated player on each NFL team. The Browns, they say, Martin Emerson. Swooped up 4 interceptions while swatting 14 passes last year. Third-year cornerback pulled off both numbers, playing mostly single coverage opposite Denzel Ward. Cleveland could have a new Pro Bowler on his hands here. Scott, there are some metrics when you look at him. He probably played like a Pro Bowler last year and just didn't get the recognition he probably should have, being Martin Emerson.
Yeah, I don't think he's underappreciated within the team, and I'm not even sure within the city. I think people appreciate how well he's played in his 2 years here, right? He's a legitimate starting cornerback in this league. The Browns have 3 good ones in Denzel Ward and Emerson and Greg Newsome II. So, he's big, he's rangy. He doesn't get, I think when you're that big, sometimes guys run by you. That doesn't happen a ton. He's physical. So, yeah, he's really good. So that makes sense if you're looking like across the league. If you ask your average fan somewhere else, I'm sure they probably don't know who he is. And they should, because he's is he a top 20 corner in this league? Like, he might be. Like, he's a legitimate starter, I think, for just about any team in this league.
Yeah, and again, I think he's ascending, and the more he plays, I think the more respect he'll get league-wide. Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also catch his stuff online, brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
The JOK situation, they can lose JOK because the marketers, he's a second-round pick. He would have to have, the market would go up. He's a Pro Bowler. So none of this is really, it just had me like, I don't know what to even feel. I'm not calm about this at all. I appreciate you taking my call. Thanks, Dave.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. So, last year, a contract for JOK. I don't think there's any way they let him get to free agency. They're gonna find a way to get a contract done with him.
Yeah, I would tell that caller he can find some calm. Like I think they're gonna get it done with JOK. To me, it's a similar situation as Grant Delpit, right? Both second-round picks, back-to-back years. Now the Browns waited until it was late in the season last year before they signed Delpit to that extension. But the reason for that was he lost that rookie year with the torn Achilles. JOK feels like he's a year ahead of Delpit in my timeline. So I would not be surprised at all if we see a JOK extension in training camp. I think it makes sense. They traded up to get him. They took him in the second round. They don't usually value linebackers like that, but they think he's special. And if you do all those things, they trade an asset. You use a valuable asset to draft him. You don't watch him walk away after 4 years when he's playing his best football. So I think the way this organization operates, it's a no-brainer that he gets a contract extension.
I would agree with you, and it's something that Andrew Berry, when he was hired, the Joe Schobert comes to mind. He got away because they let him get to that point, and Andrew Berry said the problem is you don't let him get to that point. And to take a look at some of the metrics here. This is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, only linebacker to record all three metrics in 2023. 15-plus tackles for loss, he had 20. 15-plus quarterback pressures, he had 18 and 3 turnovers. 2 interceptions and 1 forced fumble. So they're gonna extend him, and they realize they're gonna have to pay. And he was playing his best football late in the year. Jim Schwartz and he kind of figured out how to get in really good situations for him late in the year last year.
Yeah, and I think he's only getting better. And Schwartz talked about it, that he's going to be a guy that doesn't leave the field. And he wasn't there last year, right? He wasn't the signal caller for a bunch of the year. He played a lot, but it wasn't down in, down out. But I think he's to the point where he's so valuable that if it's not 100% of the snaps, it's close to 100% of snaps because he fits in your nickel package. He can fit in your dime package. And there's tangible places where you see the growth in JOK. And it's not just production. His coaches talk about when something bad happens early in a game, he used to not be able to put it behind him. And that was even evident. I think he had a good game against San Francisco last year. And then the next game, I forget who it was against, he was out early and he lost playing time. And after that, he was able to move past struggles early. His instincts are so good, he's got to funnel them. And he's been able to do that. He's been better at that as his career's gone on. So I think really the trajectory is all up for this guy.
All right. So I know you wrote an article about Myles Garrett. So kind of moved past Defensive Player of the Year, the award he won last year. Right now he's got his eyes on the big prize, if you will. Take us through that article.
Yeah, to me it was newsworthy because this is his first time as DPOI, right? So how's he dealing with it? It's the first time we talked to him. How's he process it? And he's not focused on it, right? It's not, hey, I need to repeat. It's not, oh my gosh, I got to celebrate myself. Now, I'm sure there's moments of that, and I'm sure he appreciates the award. But for him, it is bigger goals. It's team goals. And, I think Myles has really matured since he's been here. And he got here young, right? He was a junior coming out of A&M, young guy. And I've seen him mature. And whether it's just a PR thing or not, and I don't think it is, I think it's genuine, it's less about himself, right? He came in talking Hall of Fame, talking Defensive Player of the Year, and that conversation has really quieted. Now he has to be asked about Defensive Player of the Year. He doesn't bring it up. He's not obsessed with sack totals. And it's about Super Bowl. It's about winning championships for Cleveland. He's made this connection with Cleveland, and I believe him when he talks like that. And it's not the first time, right? Like, I remember a conversation with him a few years ago. I had one-on-one before the season, and he was talking about Giannis winning that championship with the Bucks. And we know Myles is a big basketball fan. And he said, that's what I want to do here, right? So this is not new. He's had this desire to bring a Super Bowl to this town for a while now, and he feels like his career wouldn't be complete unless he gets at least one Super Bowl, obviously, hopefully more.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com. As always, Scott, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrak, make sure you check him out. BrownZone.com on the internet. He is the Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. Always really good and insightful Browns coverage. We're going to take a quick timeout, step aside. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Guardians. Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter from Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com. Straight ahead, stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We turn our attention to the Cleveland Guardians. A little bit of a rough patch. Guardians have lost 4 of their last 5. Their lead on the Twins in the AL Central, still 6 games, 7 ahead of the Kansas City Royals. Start a 3-game series at home tomorrow against the White Sox, and that's good news. Take a look at this. They've played the fewest home games in baseball, but they have the best record at home in all of baseball. They've played 35 games, so that means they have the most home games left. They are currently 26-9 at home, and that games at home could be a huge advantage. Let's welcome in Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter for Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com. Hoynesy, home has been a good place. They got the White Sox and then the Giants. Those are teams they should fare pretty well against.
Yeah, they really, Dave, they really have played well at home. I don't know. I think that's kind of a quirk, sometimes when you go from year to year to year and, it differs. But this year, the baseball gods are favoring them at Progressive Field. The White Sox they scare me, Dave, because I think the last time these two teams met was in Chicago, and Chicago took 3 out of 4 from them. So, that would not be a good thing for a repeat performance like that.
Yeah, after a horrendous start, they are showing signs of life. The other thing, Gavin Williams will make his first start of the year Wednesday, so not Tuesday, but Wednesday against the White Sox. How concerned are you with the starting rotation still? McKenzie now in AAA, Carrasco, who pitches tomorrow, he's been better, but can you count on it?
Yeah, definitely the rotation is a concern. It's going to be interesting to see what Gavin can do. He's going to be on a pitch count. He's had, 6 rehab starts. So they're going to have to roll him out there and see what they can do. But I think that's going to be a work in progress. You really like the way, Bybee and Ben Lively have pitched. And I kind of, to me, Dave, I've been encouraged by Carlos Carrasco's last 2 starts. He's getting, I think he went 7 and 5 innings, kept him in the ball game. I think he might be trending in the right direction.
So this is kind of interesting as well. One of your colleagues, PlainDealerCleveland.com, Terry Pluto, wrote a column over the weekend. And the thing that really stood out is of the 15 teams in the American League, they have 59 pitchers who are on the 60-day, not the 15-day injured list, not the 10, the 60-day injured list, meaning injuries and serious injuries are occurring to pitchers all across baseball. So that, when you think of that, that's an average of 4 major injuries per team in the American League. That's frightening, and it means it's going to be awfully hard to find starting pitching come trade deadline time.
Yeah, it always is, Dave. That's why, they made the deal with Matthew Boyd, kind of an if-come deal. They don't know what exactly they're going to get from Boyd, but they think he should be able to help them sometime in August. Right now, he's a year out from Tommy John surgery. But, pitching, as they say, it's not a natural motion, not a natural fluid delivery. And, with velocities increasing, year by year, pitch by pitch, it's no wonder these guys are kind of an endangered species.
Yeah, the body just wasn't built to throw 100 miles an hour, and the people are breaking down. I'm curious. This is one of your Hey Hoynesies. Do you think the Guardians would try to bring back Cal Quantrill?
Well, I think they'd do that in a minute if they could. Quantrill is kind of what they're looking for. A guy that posts up every day, that gives them innings. That a couple years ago pitched close to 200 innings. I think that would be the guy. But if you're the Rockies, you finally found a pitcher that can pitch at Coors Field and have success. So if you're going to give him up, the return is going to be dear.
Yeah, and that's going to be the same way with all starting pitching at this time, just because so many teams need it. This is also kind of interesting. So the Guardians in their power numbers. So these are the top home run hitting teams this year. And you see the Guardians are 10th. So top third of all of baseball. They have 95 home runs this year. The reason I bring this up, last year they were dead last for the entire season a year ago. They hit 124 home runs. They've already hit 95. We're not even at the All-Star break. So two things. How important have the increased power numbers been? Is it by design? And how the heck are they doing it?
Yeah, Dave, I think it is. In a way, it's by design. They've stressed to have more contact, but with the contact, they want impact. So with guys with like Quan and Tyler Freeman, even Bo Naylor, they want those guys, to, if you see a pitch, take a chance at hitting the pitch out of the park, and then come back and, then work the count if you swing and miss.
We got dog fans. We got Browns fans over there. The dogs. That's all right. Let them go. We're good. So Janeski Noel, guy that the Guardians brought up. Do you see him getting regular playing time? I mean, you got to like what you see.
Yeah, right now I think he's going to platoon with Daniel Schneemann in right field as long as Will Brennan is on the injured list. That's how that's going to work. And I think as long as he swings a bat, there's a chance for him to stay on the roster and be a productive hitter. And it's good to finally see a guy come up and hit home runs, Dave. I mean, we've seen a bunch of guys come up, middle infielders, guys that kind of spray the ball around, but this guy can hit and he's got some thumb.
Yeah, the one concern with him is that they wanted to see him control the strike zone better. He started to do that in AAA. His average shot up near 300. So as long as he can stay away from chasing, looks like if you give him a fastball, he can hit it.
Yeah, he's you're right. That's a great way to put it. He's hitting like 295 at AAA. He cut down on the strikeouts. There's still going to be a lot of swing and miss with him because he's a big guy, 6'3", 260. He swings the bat. But when he makes contact, the ball is going to leave the yard. He's going to do some damage. So that's encouraging. I like the way he's kind of moved around in the outfield. Mm-hmm. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah, he hadn't been too bad defensively. Before I let you go, Guardians had the first overall pick in baseball draft. I know you wrote an article about it. Take us through that article, and I know there's more that Chris Antonetti will talk about later. But what we know now, what's kind of the thinking with that number one overall pick? Never had it before. First time in franchise history.
Yeah, first time in franchise history. I think there's like a handful of guys that they like. They're trying to decide who they like, who the guy is. Charlie Condon from Georgia. Bazana, the infielder from Oregon State. There's a couple pitchers. Jack Cangiloni, the two-way guy from Florida. So there's a bunch of there's a handful of really good players, especially college hitters that they like, and they're just trying to decide who they want. But the money involved is I think that's probably the hang up. There's the slot value for the number one pick is 10.5 million. Do they give that a total? Do they give that to one guy, or do they find a guy that's under slot value and they can pay him that and then spread the money that they save, on the rest of the 10-round picks in the draft?
And that's not unique to the Guardians. Everybody tries to do that to a certain extent. I guess from my perspective, find the guy that you think has the highest upside as a power hitter and take him, because you don't get the opportunity to do that very often.
No, I mean, yeah, and I think that's what they're fighting. That's what they're battling with. These guys, this front office, they've had like 6, 7, 8 months to prepare for this, so they're going to overthink it. They're going to overcook it, and we'll see which way they decide. But one way or the other, I think they're going to get a good player, Dave. I don't know if they're going to get the one player that everybody thinks they should get, but I think they're going to get a good player with the first round pick, and probably 2 or 3 good players in the first 2 or 3 picks.
Do you think I know their profile player is a guy that contact puts the ball in play. Don't you try just just thinking out loud? Don't you try to get a guy that can hit the ball out of the park? They haven't had success doing that, but they also have never had the pick of the entire draft before.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, this fell in their lap. They really they didn't really have that bad a year to get it. So, use it. Don't let it fade away. Use the pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. Go get something that you don't have in the organization. Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Hoynesy.
The dog's name is Ollie. Sorry.
That's all right. Ollie wanted to get involved. We take all kinds of involvement on Sports4CLE.
Okay.
Hoynesy, appreciate it very much. Thanks, man.
All right.
Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Make sure you check him out. Always really good Guardians coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead, we will hear and talk about Kenny Atkinson. Cavs introduced their new head coach. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. They introduced their new head coach. Kenny Atkinson was introduced as the Cavs head coach today. He's excited about the opportunity and sees the potential with this group.
What's great about this situation is like the roster that's in place, there's enough. There's enough to take that next step. No doubt about it. But Evan's a big piece of that. I'm going to feel a huge responsibility to help him get to that, top 15, top 20, whatever it is, and who knows, top 5. Why not? Like with the skill level and the athleticism and the human being, I don't see why we can't.
So welcome in Chris Fedor. He is the Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Chris, just your your reaction to the welcome press conference, and then also I know you wrote an article. They made a sound decision, logical hire with Kenny Atkinson. So take us through both of those. All right, so we're having trouble with our connection with Chris Fedor. So another thing that Kenny Atkinson talked about, one of the biggest challenges is how to make all of the roster pieces fit together for the Cavs. That includes Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen offensively.
The league is changing fast. It's a faster league. There's no doubt about it. I will say our kind of unique situation here, we got two bigs that are fast. They're just not big guys. They're knowing Jared really well. I mean, that was the thing to track. He can really get him. Evan is a 400-meter sprinter. Like he's got incredible speed for his size. I will say my experience in Golden State, I think, is going to really help. We played Draymond and Looney together a lot. We won a lot of series like that. So knowing how to use those two is going to be important, because we want to keep that defensive identity. We want to keep that base. That's so important. Now it's and part of my job is when we figure out how can we get those guys, that group with the two bigs to be more efficient offensively.
So very interesting. Kenny Atkinson kind of likening the ability to play a couple of bigs together in a style that Golden State did and had success doing it. So it was interesting to hear him talk through what he viewed and his vision for the Cavs. We're going to take a quick timeout, see if we can regain our connection with Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Sports4CLE continues. Let's welcome in Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So, Chris, just your overall reaction to what you heard from Kenny Atkinson today.
Yeah, Dave, I like the fact that he didn't give canned, cliched answers. I thought he was kind of off the cuff. I thought he was personable. I thought he was engaging. And I thought he got into some really, really important things when it came to trying to figure out how to make the core four work. The importance of Evan Mobley within this organization, some of the ideas that he has and the philosophies that he has at both ends of the floor. So I thought he came across really, really well. And I think you can tell why the Cavs were impressed with him during the interview process and why they think he is the right fit for this group and why Kenny believes that this is the right fit in this stage of his career as well.
Yeah, I know you wrote an article, just kind of the sound logical hire. When after like reading why they, you could see what they were. I could see what the front office was thinking in the hire. You can't always say that.
You can. I mean, obviously, it seemed like they were more geared toward a coach that had previous head coaching experience because of the situation that they're in. Back-to-back playoff appearances, Eastern Conference semifinals appearance, a team that wants to compete with the likes of, Boston, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, New York, and the other teams in the Eastern Conference. The Cavs, they don't see this as a training ground for somebody. And look, there's always a chance that somebody who has never been a head coach before, Dave, turns into the next Eric Spoelstra, Joe Mazzulla, Mark Dagnall in Oklahoma City, who's the reigning coach of the year, Chris Finch in Minnesota. So it's no disrespect to any of these other first-time guys, but it just felt like the Cavs throughout the entire process were more comfortable with a coach that had a little bit more seasoning, a coach that had a little bit more of a resume, a coach that had a little bit more experience because of what this job requires. On top of that, it's clear that the Cavs are putting a big-time focus on player development. Evan Mobley taking the next step, Darius Garland bouncing back from a terrible season that he had. These young players continuing to get better. Kenny Atkinson has the reputation around the NBA, Dave, as one of the best player development guys in the NBA today. And then beyond that, I think it's pretty clear that even though the Cavs have been one of the best defensive teams in the NBA over the last 3 years, they feel like the offense has been a big problem, especially when you get into a playoff environment, and that has shown itself under JB Bickerstaff. And Kenny Atkinson is known for running good stuff offensively. He's a really good tactician. He's got innovative offensive ideas. He's creative when it comes to the play calls and the sets that he runs. And he runs a more modern type offense with pace, space, and three-point shooting. And all those different things are what the Cavs were looking for in their next head coach, kind of an opposite of JB Bickerstaff in a way. And it feels like they found it in Kenny Atkinson.
So do you think they do any additions via, you've heard Cam Thomas with the Nets, or do they just kind of go back with what they had and think that they can make it fit a little differently?
I think, Dave, it depends on the kind of offers that they get in return for somebody like Darius Garland, like Jared Allen. If a team is out there and they're going to make the kind of offer that's going to blow the Cavs away, and it's one that, it's hard for them to turn down, then so be it. That's the way that it goes. But everything that I'm told is that the Cavs are operating as a team that's trying to enhance the roster around the core four. In conversations with Kenny Atkinson during the coaching process, James Borrego, Micah Nori, the three finalists, it was all, okay, what's your plan for the core four? What's your plan for Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell together and maximizing that backcourt? What's your plan for Jared Allen and Evan Mobley together? How do you use two non-spacers, non-shooters in the front court? Can you do that on the offensive end of the floor? So it feels like to me, and the signals that the Cavs are sending around the NBA, is that they want to keep the core four in place and see if this better offensive mind in Kenny Atkinson, this guy who the organization is probably going to have more confidence in, can get more out of this group than what JB Bickerstaff got out of it, especially in a playoff environment, because that's where the shortcomings really showed up for this roster and for the combination of Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and the combination of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. So look, there's always an opportunity that some team is just going to make some kind of offer that you can't possibly say no to. Brooklyn was telling teams for about a year and a half, we're not trading Mikal Bridges. We're not trading Mikal Bridges. He was the centerpiece of the Kevin Durant deal. And they turned down big-time offers for Mikal Bridges in the past. Offers that, probably made sense for the kind of player that Mikal Bridges is. And then all of a sudden, New York comes with an offer, and it blows them away. And they're like, we can't possibly say no to this thing. Look at this package. All of that for Mikal Bridges? All right, done deal. So if a team's going to do that with Jared Allen or Darius Garland, then the Cavs are going to have to listen, and they're going to have to consider it. But I find it hard to believe in this current trade marketplace, Dave, that the Cavs are going to get an offer for either one of those guys that they're going to be willing to say yes to, and they're going to consider a substantial upgrade to this roster that's already in place. And that doesn't mean that they feel like this roster is flawless and there aren't holes that they need to patch, but it's all about what can you get in return, and when it comes to free agency, what's available on the marketplace.
Is there anybody that jumps out free agent wise that you think?
Yeah, Dave, it's a weak crop. I mean, we're talking about some salary cap restrictions that the Cavs have to begin with. They obviously have a decision to make when it comes to Owusu-Koramoah and what he's going to get. They extended a qualifying offer to him, making him a restricted free agent, but they have to be cognizant of what they spend here. So essentially, they're going into this free agency process with the mid-level exception, which is about $13 million annually. The kind of player that you can get for that price tag in this market, I mean, look at what some of these other guys are going for. So obviously the top tier of free agents are just not in their ballpark in any sort of way. They haven't been from the beginning of this free agency process. And now you're talking about tier 2 players, tier 3 players, and the guys that are realistically available to the Cavs based on what they can offer financially. None of them are needle movers. If the Cavs are going to make a significant upgrade to this roster this offseason, it's going to have to be via trade. Karis LeVert, Owusu-Koramoah, George Niang, something along those lines, Dean Wade, even something along those lines to enhance this roster a little bit more than what's currently and realistically available to them in free agency. Like Gary Trent Jr. is out there, and I think he's in their price range. Played for Toronto this past year, about 26 years old, can shoot, defend, more of a shooting guard than a small forward. So I don't know if it's a positional fit for them, but it's a skill set fit. Malik Beasley is somebody that they've kicked the tires on in the past. They obviously need another center because Tristan Thompson is probably not going to be back. Damian Jones is a free agent. And there's only so much you can rely on Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. So there are positions that they could fill. There are some guys out there. Jetty Osman's out there if you want to go down that road in free agency. Sadiq Bey of the Atlanta Hawks. But the type of player that they can realistically attain based on what they can offer, it's just not somebody that is going to make a substantial difference to them competing with Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and the top teams in the Eastern Conference, or just not competing with those teams.
Before I let you go, the Detroit Pistons hired former Cavs coach J.B. Bickerstaff. And you know what? I'm not surprised by that. Trajan Langdon, there's some ties to the Cavs organization. The other thing is, J.B. Bickerstaff did a pretty good job of taking a team that was really far down, kind of where the Pistons are, and getting them to competitiveness.
That's who he is as a coach, Dave. I think there are different coaches for different situations, right? And I think J.B. Bickerstaff is the kind of coach for a rebuilding team. He's going to get a young team to buy in. He's going to instill a culture. His problems tend to be more playoff related. Like, what kind of playoff chess master are you? How good are you when it comes to X's and O's? How creative can you be offensively and defensively? How quick can you make decisions within the flow of the game? What's your roster management like? What's your minute allocation like? How do your rotations set up and stuff like that? And if there is a knock on JB, it's not stuff that Detroit demands right now at this current state. They need somebody who's going to get them to compete. They need somebody who's going to pull them out of the rebuild darkness. They need somebody who's going to give them an identity and put a culture in place. And JB does that. So that's the thing, Dave. You mentioned it. I don't think we can sit here and say that it was a guarantee that the Cavs were going to get to this place where they are right now, back-to-back playoff appearances, coming off an Eastern Conference semifinals trip. We can't just sit here and say that it was a guarantee that any coach could have stepped in for John Beilein and fixed that complete and utter disaster that was that coaching hire, right? There was no guarantee that the Cavs were going to get out of this. Teams go through rebuilds, and sometimes they go through rebuilds for like 10 to 15 years. So yeah, the Cavs added talent throughout the time that JB was here. But the fact that he took over for John Beilein and did what he did for this organization to get them to this place, You can't overlook that. You can't take that for granted, and you can't just assume that somebody else would have been able to do that. It takes the right person. It takes the right coach at the right time. And I think JV's that for the Detroit Pistons, because what they need most is what he's best at.
Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Chris.
You got it, Dave. Anytime, man.
Chris Fedor, make sure you check him out. He will have extensive coverage on Kenny Atkinson as he was introduced as the head coach for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Always great Cavs coverage. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.